Yeah, that's too much. Our neighbor fell off his roof and almost
Oh, yeah.
died.
Well, you know, I had ice dams that were really bad on my roof, so I think,
Oh.
get a very good idea. I went over to the supply company and bought $700 worth of half-inch aluminum sheeting
Oh, uh-huh.
and covered almost covered my whole damn roof. But it was so goddamn slippery up there. I had ropes tied around the vents to hold me from falling off
Oh
the
my
damn roof.
God, Bill.
Oh, it was
Oh,
really-
jeez.
Yeah, I solved a lot of the problem with that aluminum.
That sounds like something Dad had come up
Yeah.
with. The only thing he was missing is duct tape and rope.
Yeah, right. That sounds like Grandpa Farrell.
Yeah.
He was a good, especially with his plumbing. God, he'd have that plumbing go this way, that way, no elbows, not, you know, bent pipes. It hardly kept the water in, but boy, it did look terrible.
I always thought he was very mechanical.
Oh yeah, he,
He was just a little inventive and mechanical,
Ah.
apparently.
I guess so. Well, should we start?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. What is your full name? And how
William
old are
Charles
you?
Farrell,
William Charles?
yeah,
How old are you now?
82,
And what year were you born?
1920,
What was the month and date?
March 28th, 1920.
Do you remember your grandparents' names on each side?
I think so. Pat and Ann on my father's side, and Sarah and August on my mother's side.
And their last name was Casilius?
Cecilia's right.
Do you remember the years they were born?
My mother, my grandparents, or my,
Your grandparents?
Grandparents.
no, I really don't.
Uh-huh.
How about your mom and dad?
Well, I know mother's was in March, and I think Dad's was about the same time of year, April or something. I don't really remember though.
Do you remember the year at all?
No, I don't. I have no idea.
It's like 18... This is in
You
the
could tell-
1890s, wasn't it?
You could probably tell pretty close by my birth certificate to be able to figure out they were probably married a year or so before I was born.
Okay,
If there's anything on that that tells,
okay,
Do you know how old they were when they got married?
no, I don't.
okay.
Alrighty. What were your aunts and uncles' names in order of birth, if you remember?
Well, on Dad's side, it was Uncle Jim, Uncle Huey, Uncle Jack, Uncle George, and Uncle Harry. And they had one sister, her name was Mimi. And on my mother's side, she had, well, it was Aunt Dina and Irene, mother, Dorothy, and Charlie was the only brother that survived.
Uh-huh. Did they had another boy, but
Oh yeah, he died when he was just real young.
oh. Do you remember your grandparents, like your dad's mother and father, what they were like?
Well, let's see, my Grandpa Farrell died when I was about a year old, so I have no recollection of him at all. I knew her for, well, till I was probably 10, 12 years old, just before she died.
Did she have much to do with you, or did you see her very
Well,
often?
actually, when Doug was a baby, we lived in their house in Prior Lake because we didn't have a house at the time, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And he was real sick baby. He almost died. He was in a tent, oxygen in the tent. She sat up with him all night long, taking care of him. They told her that he couldn't live, but somehow she pulled him through. But so we lived there, so we were pretty close to him then.
Oh, huh. That's amazing.
Do they know what he had?
No, I probably pneumonia for one thing, but
Yeah.
you know, he was in an oxygen tent, and so it's something you had to eat. But the doctors told her that there's no way he was going to live, so
Wow.
kind of lucky as far as that's concerned.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's it. Did they, so after that, did she come out to the farm much, where you lived?
No, then we moved to Red Oaks, so we're down on the, right on Prior Lake. And, you know, we used to see quite a bit of her. But she did, the last years of her life, she lived in Dakota with her sister, her daughter. They lived in Aberdeen, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
With Mamie?
Ann.
Oh, Ann.
Ann. What's her name? Annie, or I guess Ann or Annie.
Oh,
Did she ever drive or anything?
Oh,
No.
Grandma? No, no, oh no. I'm sure she never did.
So she'd have to get around with a horse and buggy then?
Oh,
or-
yeah, that or somebody else drive her. I'm sure Harry was there and he had a car, I'm sure.
Would it be like a Model T or something then?
Well, it was, I remember he had Overland. He had an Overland. I remember we were going down to Red Oaks one time and one of the wheels came off. And the cars were going down this dirt road and the goddamn wheel was rolling by the car. Of course, that isn't so bad. The old man was even worse. He had a Model T, and the Model T had two bands, one for forward and one for reverse. And his forward was so bad it couldn't make the big hill. He had to back up the big hill all the time when he
Oh
went
my
home.
gosh.
Sounds like a feral car.
And one time we were going out to Prior Lake on Old Highway 13, and it was, I think it was Bob and Pat and I were all with him. And he was driving, and we saw a cow down the road. And we started yelling at him, you know, there's a cow, you know, be careful, you're not gonna hit that cow. Sure as shit, he hit the cow. He was a terrible driver.
He must have thought, Dad.
Yeah. Well, what were the roads like? Were they kind of those ruts,
Oh,
those
they
dirt
were all-
ruts, or were they?
No, they were fairly smooth, but they
Oh.
were gravel
Oh, okay.
covered, you know.
Huh. Hit a cow. Do you have an earliest memory? Like the first thing you remember, or the first place you lived, or
Oh,
anything?
yeah, I remember that. We lived in a Casey farm, Dad rented it in Credit River. I remember running away from home once when I was real little. We loaded up my little wagon and took off down the road. Got about half a mile away and decided it wasn't much of a good, it wasn't too good a deal. Never going home then. I remember once when the old man had a Model T and he backed over Pat. Pat was in kind of a little depression, so it didn't get him too bad, but backed right over him. He lived in Credit River then at that time, but it didn't hurt him, so it wasn't too bad. I remember I had a little blind mouse that I carried around. I had it in a paper thing, you know, and the damn little mouse slipped out of the paper and I stepped on it. That was horrible. Really heartbreaking.
It was your pet?
Huh?
And it was your pet?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He was my buddy.
How'd you know he was blind?
Oh, I suppose we saw him wandering around or something. I don't know. I know we couldn't see.
Huh.
Remember, that's about the time, you know, I was probably 4 or 5 years old. The old man brought a pair of boxing gloves home, a set of boxing gloves. Proceeded to beat the hell out of me for about 15 years with those gloves. Every time he'd say, well, let's put on the gloves, you know, and that was time to put on the gloves. And when I was about 15 or 16, came home about half licked up one night, and I got a couple good shots at him. We never put the gloves on again.
How old were you when Pat was born?
So I'm about 3.5 years older than he is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What do you remember about him as a kid?
He was, you know, he was quite a bit smaller and younger and stuff, so I really didn't. We always got along so great and everything, but, you know, I don't recall ever doing anything particular with him, but
Uh-huh.
we never had any problems. The littler ones that came, like Gus and Jenny and them, I remember pushing them back and forth across the goddamn floor in their buggy to keep their little mouths shut, you know, when they were screeching and hollering. I hated that, but that's about all. That was my job, to push the buggy.
Sounds like you had a lot of responsibility.
Well, of course, when you were on a farm, you had responsibility, you know. You had to milk cows, you had to shovel out the barn, you had to work in the garden. Of course, we always had a big garden.
Do you know, what kind of crops did you grow?
Kind of what?
What kind of crops did you grow?
Well, we had wheat and corn, probably oats.
How many acres did you farm then, do you think?
Must have had at least 160 acres.
Oh,
that
really?
farm was pretty good size, yeah.
Did you have to grow all that by hand then?
Oh, yeah, it was
Oh, my
all
God.
horses, you know, there was no, rich people may have had tractors, but poor people didn't have tractors.
Right.
You did it all with horses.
Holy
And
cow.
I remember in the fall, you plow up the fields, and then in the spring, you get out there and you drag them and you harrow them and disc them to level it, chew it up and level them out.
Mhm.
And I was too little to walk all day behind the horses, so he'd build little platforms for me to stand on
Wow.
when I was out there chasing the suckers around. God, I hated farming. I really did. I hated cows.
Did you have any dairy cows at all, or a
Oh yeah,
cow
we
or
had.
anything?
Oh yeah, milk was an important
Yeah,
product because you know it was income every month from it.
okay.
Because you know what, you, wheat and corn and stuff you get once a year
Right.
when you sell it. But cows, why, that was a steady income.
So did you have chickens then too for eggs?
Oh, we had chickens and pigs and geese and everything, you know, everybody raised everything. Even people used to have a couple of geese running around that they used to eat sometime, greasy damn things.
Yeah.
I never cared for them, but a lot of people had turkeys. We never had any turkeys, but turkeys were pretty independent. You'd have them, but they'd be out in the woods or in the fields or somewhere, you know. They didn't come in to eat every day or something like that.
Okay.
Came in when they felt like it.
And then hopefully around Thanksgiving time you'd
Yeah, I
find one?
suppose they probably, well, tell me about that. My mother used to make me take the heads off the goddamn chickens we'd eat, you know, cut the heads off of the necks.
Yeah.
It's hard to cut the chicken's heads off when your eyes are shut because I couldn't look at it.
How was our dad with that? I don't expect he was too good about cutting chickens' heads off.
I don't think he was required to. I was the oldest, so it was my job, I guess.
I can't imagine Dad killing the
I
chicken.
don't recall him ever getting involved in it.
So do you remember the very first home that you lived in? The very first one that you remember? What was it built like?
First one I remember was Casey's farm that we lived on, that we rented. Big farmhouse. Mother
And what-
used to raise, had incubators and hatch little chickens. Remember hatching them in the house where it had to be warm, you know.
Yeah.
I can remember that.
Do you know about how many rooms there was? Was there like living room, dining room, kitchen separate?
Oh
like
yeah,
that,
it
or-
was a good sized house. I would say it was a 3-bedroom house at least.
And then where'd you go from there?
Well, then, after these guys came home from World War I, my grandmother Farrell did something with some loan outfit that got them all 80 acres or something, you know, but it was a big mortgage, of course. And we moved up there to that little place, and it had a goddamn shed on it, what we called it a shed, or shack, we called it the shack. As I recall, the floors were dirt even,
Oh, really?
just packed. But it was a miserable little thing, you know, unbelievable. We were there for a while, I don't know, and I think it was so bad, I suppose, when winter came, we had to get out of there. I think that's probably one of the times we were with, in the Farrell house there in Prior Lake. There was a house there in that, right close to the church.
Do you know how did you heat it even if it was?
Well, sure it would be just wood, you know, wood stoves.
How
Oh,
many
yeah.
kids were there by then?
Huh?
Were all the kids born by that time?
Doug came along about that time, yeah.
While you were in that house?
Jen came after we were down at Red Oaks, lived on Friar Lake. She was born then.
Do you remember living through any of the storms or anything in a house like that?
Storms?
Yeah, like spring storms or anything, rain or
Not really.
wind or anything?
No.
Trying to sleep at night or anything like that?
No, I don't remember anything that was scary in that department.
Was the Red Oaks place the Casey place that you
No,
rented?
that was, Casey's was in Credit River.
Oh, okay.
Red Oaks was right on Fire Lake.
Uh-huh. And what was that like? Did you buy,
No,
A
no, we
house there?
rented that too.
rent,
Yeah.
was it farmland and a house?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So you farmed there.
So do you remember what order it went from which house to which house to which house to which house like that?
Well, we went from Casey's to the shack, and then we went from that to Fire Lake, and then Fire Lake we went to Red Oaks. Then we lived in various places around, once in Greenwood, and then Dennis Simpkins, who was my uncle, Irene's husband, had a little place that we lived in for quite a while, and then Charlie bought it, and he and Grandma lived there, and Grandma died there. So that was connected with that for quite a while.
And from there, how many places did you live in before you get to St. Paul? Because you guys came back to St. Paul, didn't you?
Yeah, right, we lived in St. Paul, we lived in Grove Street, we lived in, what the hell was it, some kind of University Heights someplace, and we lived on 12th Street. And then just, on Canada, we lived on Canada Street. And then we moved to Minneapolis over on South 7th Street, close to downtown Minneapolis, on South 7th Street. That's where they lived when, well, I was in the CC camp, and then one winter we came home, we hitchhiked down to Chicago and lived down there for a year.
The whole family?
No, just, Lee Hansen and I went first.
Oh.
And we could get jobs right away, so we called some other guys. Orv McCann came down, my brother Pat came down, and we stayed down there for quite a while. Then I was working on a punch press, and the damn press came down by itself, you know. We'd kick the pedal and she'd come down and stamp out a part.
Mm-hmm.
We'd reach in and pull it out. Well, I reached in to pull it out, the son of a gun came down again. So then I decided I was going to come home, so I said to Pat, you better come with me. So he and I came home.
How
Do you
old were you at that time?
21.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember any of the actual addresses of the houses that you lived in St. Paul? The actual street numbers?
I don't remember the numbers. As I say, I never remember living on 12th Street. I remember on Canada and Grove Street. And then there was one,
Do you think some of those houses are still there?
I don't know. You know, I really don't. I'm sure that one on 12th Street, that was a real barn. I don't think that's still there, but the one on up by the Capitol, that was a fairly decent house. And the Grove Street, that's right next to the market. I don't know if that's still there anymore or not either. I don't know what they've done over there. It was there since, you know, after I was out of the service, a lot of them were still there. So, but I haven't been over there much since then.
What kind of work was Grandpa doing when you lived in the cities?
A lot of it was construction work. He worked in there was a guy that had a cottage out at Fire Lake. His name was Sullivan. He got to be a district judge or something, U.S. district judge. Whenever the old man was out of work, the old man would go talk to him, and he'd send him a job. He'd set him up with a job. Never had to be without a job.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
But he worked as a night watchman over South Minneapolis, and he worked in a lot of construction. And a lot of, in St. Paul, he worked a lot in the sewers, that they were really, you know, the deep ones.
Yeah, underneath the main
Yeah,
part of the city.
right.
I remember that for some reason. I just remember someone talking about that.
Oh, is that right?
I don't remember him doing it, I just
I
remember.
I would have thought that would have been bad for him, because he couldn't stand to go up anything high, couldn't stand heights. I mean, remember the old windmill, something had happened to it, why he chased me up there, and I was just as bad as he was, you know, but I was too little to say no, I had to go. But the same way, I remember my house over on Garfield, the peak of the, very peak up there, it wasn't painted. I had the whole house painted that summer, but I didn't get that, and the neighbor says, "You forgot that." I said, "Bullshit, I didn't forget it." I said, "I knew it was there." getting up there.
We got down probably through here. Do you know what kinds of food Grandma would make on a regular basis, and kind of what kind of stoves and stuff she had to cook with?
Well, I suppose until the later years, I'm sure she didn't have gas or anything. She had wood stoves, but after we lived moved to Minneapolis, I'm sure it was gas by that time. But you know, I don't remember what they were in St. Paul. I think they were probably gas there too.
Do you know what kind of food she would make for you on a regular basis? What kind of meals did she cook?
Oh, I don't know. We always ate, but I don't think we were, you know, high off the hog job, you know. Pat did a lot of the shopping. He used to go with his little wagon and go down to the so-called supermarket in those days, which wasn't much of a supermarket, but he did most of the shopping.
I'd heard that he did a lot of price comparing while he was down there.
Yeah.
He would look for the best deals.
Oh, I suppose he probably was. He worked in the grocery store set later on.
Oh.
In fact, when we lived on Canada Street, he worked in the little grocery right across the street from us. So he had a little experience in that.
Huh.
Do you remember the first house that you had with electricity and running water? Was that the very first house you...
Well, let's see, that would be at least when we moved back to St. Paul. And I was freshman in high school at that time.
That was the first.
So probably about 15 or so.
So until then, it was always outdoor plumbing,
Right,
basically.
right,
And candles or lanterns.
right.
What'd you think of the moving into a house with electricity and plumbing?
Well,
Do you
it was
remember it all?
Very convenient, yeah.
Very convenient.
Wasn't as cold at night, that's for damn sure.
Did the family eat meals together each
Oh,
night?
yeah, we always ate together.
You did.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say, not always. We always had supper together, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, then when we were at school, we took our lunches with us. And breakfast, I suppose that was kind of a hit or miss affair. I don't know, whoever was, got up first, ate first, and, you know. We ate a lot of, there was a cornmeal. I don't know if you know what cornmeal was. That was a staple for breakfast. It was kind of like cream of wheat, only corn.
Right.
And of course, other oatmeal. And then sometimes she'd do pancakes and stuff like that, you know.
Do you ever remember having any treats and stuff?
Any
Did you
what?
guys ever get any treats like, I don't know, gum or candy or anything
Oh, yeah.
very often?
Not very often, because of course, I remember the old man would give me a dime or quarters once in a while, and that would be it. You were living big when you had that kind of. Even in St. Paul, I remember we used to go down to the State Theater, which was a dime, and if you had a nickel for a candy bar, 2 bowls, why, you had it made, boy, you living big.
What kinds of things, did you like school?
Oh, I don't think I really cared, much about it either way. I didn't hate it, and I didn't love it. I just was all right.
I heard you played football in
Yeah,
high school.
well, I like that part of it. Yeah,
You always liked the sports?
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what things you liked.
Which one?
About the things you liked.
Oh, I don't
Say
know.
in
Well,
high
of course, I
school.
always liked fishing and hunting, especially fishing. I can remember when I was just a little kid, when we had Red Oaks, we rented out boats. We had a few boats that we rented out. And I found some guys plugging the all darn boat, you know, and I'm putting worms on the goddamn gang hooks, throwing that out, trying to catch. But we used to catch fish, a lot of fish. God, fishing was good. We'd take our canoe in the spring, and we'd go along the shoreline, find where the spawning beds were, and the damn fish would hang out there all year. Anytime somebody wanted fish, all they had to do was tell me. And there were nice big sunfish too. They were not little bitty ones like you catch now. Crappies were big.
Wow.
And of course, I don't know, hunting, I didn't have a rifle until I was probably about maybe 14 or 15, and then Uncle Jack Farrell, the brother, was a bartender, and they had one of those things where they punch out the punches, you know, for prizes. He punched out one for 22 and gave it to me.
Oh,
He probably
jeez.
cheated a little, I don't know, because Jack was kind of shaky. Jack and Huey were card sharks. They used to play a game out there called euchre. I don't know if you know what it is. I don't know what it is.
I've heard of it.
But they finally got so they barred them. They wouldn't let them play anymore. Because all they did was win, and they knew they were cheating, but they couldn't figure out what they were doing. But they were pretty good at it.
So you got the rifle and then you were able to go hunting?
Oh, absolutely. And the squirrels and rabbits caught hell then, boy.
Oh,
Because we ate those things in those days. We needed them for food, you know,
Uh-huh.
they came in handy.
sure.
God, a good squirrel stew or something. I remember when I first went to high school, we didn't have a high school in Prior Lake, of course. They bused us to Shakopee. And of course, I went out for football right away, and I was very fortunate because in those days, freshmen could play. So I got to play football, but we couldn't have the bus couldn't bring us back because we were practicing, you know. So the coach used to have a couple of guys that were a little bigger and had their own cars. He used to buy their gas, and they'd bring us home at night.
Wow.
And I remember I would coming in the house, and Mother'd have a boiled dinner, you know, with all the kind of cabbage and onions and tomatoes and stuff. God, that was good. Oh. Yeah.
Did she feed the boys too that brought you home, or did
Oh,
they
no.
just drop you off and
They
take you?
just drop us off, or there were probably about 4 of us from Prior that were on the team, so they'd drop us off right in town. We'd just walk home. I had about a mile to walk then.
Do you remember what kind of preparations you guys would do for Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything like that?
Oh yeah, we always had turkey or chicken or something like that.
Was it a big family event? Did other family
No,
members come?
no, just individual families. Just your own family.
So it wasn't like aunts and uncles and
No.
cousins and stuff? Do you know what your favorite holiday memory would be? Growing
I
up?
would think 4th of July, because we used to save our money all year to buy fireworks.
Were those the real fireworks back
Oh,
then?
absolutely, sure, goddamn firecrackers. And I remember you could still see on my finger here, I had a cherry bomb went off in my hand one time. It split the finger and did some sort of damage to the other finger, and then it cut me right over the eye. But I lit it on a flare, you know, and I couldn't see when it lit.
Oh, gee.
You know.
No wonder it was your favorite holiday.
Oh, God, yeah, but we'd fire off so much stuff, unbelievable, you know. Firecrackers. Yeah, it was a big time.
Do you guys remember what did you do in the wintertime for entertainment, for fun?
Well, sliding and skiing and skating, but especially skiing, you know, we'd have these big hills that, you know, we find out there. And we'd build jumps at the bottom, and we'd go shooting off the jump. Remember, the old skis, just pine skis is all we had. We didn't, and when you keep going off the jump, why they'd vibrate, pretty soon they'd start to split on you, you know, and stuff. But we did it. God, ski down the hill, walk up the hill, ski down the hill, walk up the hill.
That must have
A
been
lot of
where Dad.
exercise, boy.
That must have been where Dad got his ski
I
jumping.
don't know where the hell how he could do that. I mean, I never had enough guts to jump off one of those things.
It's too high.
Oh man, not for me.
Was your whole family kind of sports oriented or outdoors
Oh yeah,
oriented?
Dad was. He played ball and stuff when he was younger, and you know,
What kind of ball?
baseball.
Oh,
But he used to come to. When I got out of the service, I was playing fast pitch 3 nights a week, like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And of course, he came to all the games. And if we lost, he wanted to fight the other team. I finally told him after a long time, I said, either you're gonna settle down or I'm gonna quit playing. This is crazy.
So there's something to that Fighting Irish?
Oh, God, I don't know if there was, I don't know how big a fighter he was, but if the other team beat us, he wanted to fight it. No, I never cared for coffee.
Say that again. Can you tell me about the coffee thing and being on the ship?
Well, we used to, the coffee pot was always available. I mean, that was open, you know. You could go get it whenever you wanted. And we'd go on some of these old Liberty ships that we'd go from island to island on. They were just miserable things. They didn't even have bathrooms. They had a goddamn wooden trough on the top, on the deck, and you'd do your business in the top,
Really?
in the trough, and then they'd flush it over the goddamn side with a hose. So that was what kind of, and they wouldn't give you breakfast. They didn't have the facilities. You give maybe a sandwich of some kind for 10 o'clock in the morning, and then in the evening they'd give you a half a boiled potato and a hunk of salmon or something out of the can, or maybe something else with it. That was your supper. So you drank a cup of coffee every time, just to fill your goddamn gut up a little bit, keep your tummy from aching.
I don't understand. How would you then have the strength that you'd need to
I don't
fight?
know. Well,
I suppose
when
fear.
you're young, you know, you can take that crap pretty good.
Boy, that's something. Well, we're getting a little bit ahead here. Do you remember when you were in the country, were you in a one-room schoolhouse then?
Oh yeah, the first one I went to was, but by the time I got to Prior Lake, it was a big brick building, an upstairs and a downstairs,
Oh,
4 grades downstairs and 4 grades upstairs.
what grades?
Well,
What?
first 1 to 4
Oh, okay.
downstairs and 4 to 8
Okay.
upstairs.
So it was a grade school and a middle school, and then there was a high school somewhere else.
Well, there was no high school in Prior Lake. I say
Oh yeah,
they
was
bused us to
Shakopee.
Shakopee.
Okay. Okay. Do you remember in the one-room schoolhouse? How was it? Do you remember how big it was, or how they heated it, or?
Well, I know it was a very small room and just a stove sitting there, you know.
Franklin stove, like
Yeah,
that?
a little regular little stove, you know,
Mhm.
nothing special. Just put wood in it and let it burn.
And so did students take care? Was
Oh,
that part of their
absolutely.
duty?
Sure, you get haul in the wood and stuff like that.
And then it was just one teacher for the whole, for
Right.
for all
Right.
the grades or
Where
whatever?
everybody was there.
And how did she do that then? If there was first graders and it was sixth graders or something, how did she?
Well, all you did was your different rows, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and she'd work on that row and then move to the next one, down,
Okay.
various subjects. One to be taking math, one to be taking history, and another one reading or whatever.
Right.
But reading
Wow.
is the one thing that I really love to do.
Really?
And when we moved to Prior Lake, one whole wall, that big wall, was just one big library, and I read every goddamn book in that library.
That must.
Really,
Dad was kind
really
of like that.
enjoyed reading. I still do, but
Were your other brothers and your sister, were they like that too?
Jenny, I give her my books all the time when I finish them.
Still?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Send them down. She comes up here or something. Send them down there, whatever. Yeah, I'll have a couple big bags full of them. In fact, when the library once in a while sells books, I had a sea bag. We had a sea bag used to stand about that high and about that big around that we had everything in overseas. And I'd take that down to the library and I'd just walk along and every title that looked good, I'd throw it in the damn sea bag. I used to buy all kinds of them.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't get that bug.
Oh,
No,
well, I think
John
writing-
does though.
Reading is one of the great pleasures as far as I'm concerned. I really enjoy that.
Did Grandma sew your clothes, or did you buy clothes, or how did that work out when you were young?
Well, I'm sure she sewed some of them, but, you know, like coats and stuff like that, she probably cut them down and sewed them and made them fit. But otherwise, you'd get 2 or 3 outfits when school started in the fall, and then it lasted through the school year.
And she'd buy those for
Oh,
you?
yeah, right.
Okay. And then obviously she had to do a lot of mending,
Oh, absolutely.
especially socks, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you know how she had to clean the clothes then? Where would she do that? If you
Well-
didn't have running water?
No running water. They just heated up the water up on the stove and wash them in wash tub. We wash the old wash tub. They scrubbed them on, and then
Yeah.
the wringer you turn the wringer
Okay.
by hand.
So right in the kitchen, basically?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And you already mentioned that you don't, you got along with your brothers and sister pretty well then?
Oh God, yes.
Did you ever tease each other ever very
I
young?
don't think so. I don't think we ever did that at all.
Do you remember any of your brothers or your sister having dreams, aspirations of being rich or famous or going to faraway places, or
I never heard of any.
they never talked about
No.
it, saying, I want to go off and be?
Well, the only one was Gus. Went to seminary for a year or so. You know, he was going to be a priest.
Mhm.
But of course, they took him too young. You know, they didn't really know what they wanted to do.
Right. Do you remember much about him being in the seminary?
Oh, I remember absolutely. We went out. Naz's Hall was the name of it. We'd go out there and visit him.
How did he like it?
I don't know. You know, he maybe never said much about it. When he decided he wasn't going to go anymore, he just didn't go anymore.
He told us that the reason he decided not to go anymore is because the priest had to sing and he didn't want to have to do that in front of all those people, he said.
Oh, is that right?
That's just what he said, yeah.
Well, that may be. And,
Because back then they sang the masses, right?
oh, absolutely. They, at least some of it, you know.
Yeah.
Sing-song is more or less not really singing, but kind of a singing recitation or some damn thing. I don't know what you call it.
So did your family go to church on Sundays all the time?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We were very... In fact, I was an altar boy.
Really?
Yeah.
And so then, how'd you get there?
Walk.
Really?
Oh, yes.
How far was it, you think?
Oh, we were miles from town.
What do you remember about being an altar boy?
Oh, I don't know. Old Father Deer was the one that was most of the time. They used to say Mass every morning, you know, and he'd make us walk that mile in the dark, for Christ's sake, to get there in time to say Mass in the morning, you know.
Really?
But he was a tough old guy. He'd take you by the ears and lift you up in the air. He was a real tough guy.
And that's when he liked you.
Yeah, I suppose.
So if you had to be an altar boy in the morning every day, when did you fix in the chores before, with breakfast and getting to school and all that?
Well,
How did that work
But
out?
you didn't have the duty all the time.
Okay.
See, there were maybe 4 or 5 altar boys, and there would be one who would have to serve Mass in the morning.
Okay.
So it'd be maybe every 1 week a month or something that you had to do that.
So how did you work it then on the week that you had it? What did you do first thing in the morning? You must have had to go to church right away if it was.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, I suppose you grabbed some little something and took off. No big deal.
And then did your other siblings take care of the chores that were going to be yours then, or didn't you have regular chores every morning?
Well, no, we didn't. No, not too many things in the morning. The only thing that had to be done in the morning was the stupid cows had to be milked.
Yeah.
So if you, and I don't know if you know cows, but man, they are so stupid. They're absolutely, if there's a brain in a cow, I don't know where the hell it is. They switch you with their dirty old tails and step in the milk bucket and kick you and every other damn thing.
Do you remember, or did Grandma or Grandpa ever tell you how they met?
No, they did. That I have no idea.
And you don't know where they met?
Well, it was out there because they were both from out there.
Oh, where's out
Prior.
Prior Lake?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember what you liked most about Grandma when you were growing up? What were the favorite things about her?
Well, I don't know. My mother was always a real, no big fuss about anything. I mean, very calm.
How about Grandpa? What were your favorite things about him?
Oh, he was a character, that old boy. Always had, in winter time, he'd have his goddamn shirt unbuttoned down to here. Drank all his life. you know, he was an alcoholic is what he was, if you
Yeah.
wanted to cut it. But he always worked, and he always ate his meals.
Mhm. Do you remember what types of jobs? I think we kind of went over it, but do you remember some of the jobs that he did?
Well, of course, you know, he did do anything that he could get, really, because he didn't have it, except to be, I suppose as a pipe fitter, you would say he was a plumber, you know,
Right.
but there wasn't anything out there for plumbers. So, I mean, he just did whatever he could get, although he usually had a farm of some kind going. But I don't think he ever made a hell of a lot of money at it, because eventually, the 80 acres that they fixed him up with when he got out of the service, well, he lost that. So that was gone.
Do you know how many of you kids worked on neighboring farms growing up?
You mean outside of our own?
Yeah.
No, we had enough to do with our own.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Because I think Ma said that Dad had to go to work at like age 7.
Oh, well, he went out to, well, he lived at Swabers for a while, you know. I mean, I suppose you would say that? Yeah, I didn't even think of that. I didn't know that too much.
Did he ever talk about that?
No, not really. I don't know. He never. I think they treated him well, so I don't think he had any complaints or anything.
Yeah, I know he really liked Grandpa a lot.
Yeah.
I think Ma said that when Grandpa Swaber died, she was almost embarrassed by how hard Dad cried.
Oh, is that right?
He cried so hard in the church that it was,
I'll be
he just
damned.
made a real racket.
I'll be darned.
Grandpa Swaber was very charismatic.
Oh, is that
and he
right?
was very intelligent.
You know, he lived in the last part of their lives. They had that little house in Fire Lake, which is actually right next to the Farrell house. You know, just
Wasn't
Farrell
it your
house was
uncle?
here, and they were
Oh,
just
right.
One of your uncles, wasn't it?
yeah, Harry's.
Harry.
Well,
yeah.
it was a Farrell house because Farrells all lived there at one time or another. You know,
Yeah.
they
yeah.
didn't have it wasn't a real fancy house or anything, but it was, you know, they all worked at it. I don't think the basement was much. I think it was probably dirt floor down there, but
A cellar.
yeah.
Sure.
Do you remember, did Grandma ever work outside of being out of the farm? Did she ever go work somewhere and do anything, regular job?
You mean when she was an adult?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember she worked there, when I was overseas, she was working downtown in one of the department stores. But when she was a young girl, she worked as taking care of other people's kids, you know.
She was like a nanny or
living
something?
at their houses and stuff,
Oh, really?
yeah.
I had heard she was a seamstress also.
Oh yeah, she did a lot of that too. She had forms and everything, you know. They
Was-
built them on.
When you were a kid?
Oh
she
yeah,
was doing
I
that?
remember that when I was 10, 12 years old, she did that.
And she liked to read to the kids, I heard.
Yeah. I don't know, somebody got me reading because I've read all my life.
That's a good
So
thing.
somebody sold me. I still go back to one teacher that used to read us, every morning she'd read us a chapter out of some book. I think maybe she got me started more than anybody else.
Uh-huh. It's a wonderful thing.
Oh God, I love to read.
Do you think you'd take more after Grandma or Grandpa? As far as your
Well,
personality characteristics?
Well, I think probably we all probably took more after my grandma than grandpa. I don't know. Nobody ever had a problem with booze that I know, although Pat drank a lot of beer, but, you know, none of them drank, not like the old Farrells. I mean, God almighty, Jack and some of those guys, they drank a lot, and the old Dad did too. I think probably Huey did.
Well, aside from that characteristic, was he stubborn or
Oh, he was.
tenacious?
Oh God, yes, he was opinionated.
Oh?
Oh God. We'd take him to the ball games out to the ballpark, you know, Bob and Pat and I, He'd pull for the other team just to be ornery.
And then he was competitive, I hear.
Oh, yeah, he was that too. And he'd love to pick on kids, you guys know that.
Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
we found that out.
Yeah.
How did he lose his finger? He lost one or two fingers,
Two.
isn't it? Do you remember?
You know, I don't even know.
I think I remember something about a snowplow,
What was that? I wouldn't doubt
but
it.
I don't remember for sure.
Yeah. Well, you know, I remember 'em, they'd be breaking horses, you know, wild horses, and they'd break them. I don't know, that's what they called it.
Mhm.
Made them so they could ride them
Right.
or work with them. And one of them got him tangled up in the rope and dragged him all over the goddamn place, and, you know, it was all banged up and stuff. And then, of course, what was it, some guy on a bicycle or a motorcycle ran into him over here on Central or on 40th. Do you remember that?
I never heard of that.
Oh, God, he almost died that time, and he wouldn't go to the doctor. He was down there in that little room in that little old house over there.
Mm-hmm.
Christ, just really beat up.
And he wouldn't go to the doctor?
Oh, no,
How old was you when that happened, do you think?
he wasn't young anymore then. That's since, you know,
In his 50s or 60s?
oh,
or?
yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
He was always doing crazy stuff like that, you know. Getting screwed up.
Did you ever get mad at Grandma and Grandpa when you were a kid for any reason? Did they ever say something, or why did you try to run away that time? Was it just for fun? or
Well,
was
you
it-
know, what was I say, 4 or 5 years old? you
Yeah.
know. Something I didn't like, I suppose. No, I never remember being mad at him. particularly.
Were they strict?
Not
Parents?
really. I remember we had, in our little schoolhouse, where I told you where we had a upstairs and downstairs, they
In Pryor.
decided to have some kind of a musical thing. So they put the two first and second floor together. So they were all ganged up, you know, and nobody could know who anybody was. So we decided we didn't want any part of it. We started to skip. So we'd be skipping school every Friday afternoon when they had this. I remember the old man gave me a pretty good strapping about that time, man. But I'm sure Mother was pushing that one. But that's the only time he never touched, you know.
They wanted you to get an education?
Oh, well, I'm sure of that, but, I mean, he never banged you around, never beat you up, you know, gave you a beating or anything. I mean, there was never any of that. That's probably what he did with the gloves. He probably thought he'd gotten enough of that. He'd love to get you going, then he'd foot behind you like that and trip you. I thought that was great fun.
Was he a storyteller? Did he like to tell stories?
No, I don't know. I don't think he talked too much about anything. He's always working.
Hard life.
Oh, God, those people had a tough life. Oh.
People today can't really imagine.
Oh, Christ, you can't imagine. There's no way you could compare to what we have or what they did. No, they had cold in the wintertime and hot and hell. You know, no air conditioning in the summertime. That was unheard of, for Christ's sake. I remember when first theaters started to get them in, air conditioning in the summertime. That was a biggie deal, you know. People would go to the damn movie just to be cool. And this wintertime being cold, that was another. I remember always had something laying along the bottom of the doors and crap like that, you know, to keep out the cold.
How about bugs in the summertime?
There was, you know, I don't ever remember any spray for mosquitoes or anything. You just kept what blood they left and washed them off. Yeah, they used to be fierce, boy, I tell you.
Now, are you a water lover? Did you enjoy swimming?
Oh, yeah, I love to swim too.
Yeah?
Yeah, I remember we used to go out to McCarran's over in St. Paul, and we'd hike out there and hitchhike out there, but a lot of it we'd hike, and we'd swim across the lake. But the thing was, when you hiked all that way, then you started swimming and you started to get cramps in your legs, but you know, you can get cramps out of your legs, you know, without getting any trouble. If you have it in your stomach or something, you could be in big trouble, but in your legs, you can work them out. But we used to swim all the time out at Pryor. In fact, in the summertime, that's where the kids around the lake used to hang out on a diving dock out in the middle of the lake.
Sure.
And all the kids would congregate out there all day long, you know.
I once heard stories, and I don't know if this is from Aunt Jenny or who said this, but they believed that Grandpa had bullet wounds in his legs from being a horse
I
thief.
understand he did carry, I don't think he was working out in Dakotas as a stoke or cowboy, and I think he did get shot or something, and he never got out of it. They never got it out of him.
Oh, really?
The lead was still in him someplace, but I don't think it was from stealing horses or being a
Not quite
bank
that
robber or anything like that, you know. I think it was just probably some dumb thing.
An accident?
Yeah, that maybe he did it himself, who knows, you know.
Do you remember, now his brothers, you had mentioned, I had down here, it says, what were your uncles like? Some say they were a little bit wild. Do you have any stories?
Well, I don't know, I really like them, I don't know what I would say about them, but some, oh, I'm sure they were, like Uncle Jim had a egg route, he used to drive out around the country and, you know, pick up eggs and take them and then sell them.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible driver, God, I know Pat worked with him once for a little while, just couldn't go crazy talking about it, you know. Horrible, I guess, the way he drove. That's all I remember about it.
What kind of vehicle would he be driving about that time?
Probably an old Chevy or an old Ford of some kind, I imagine.
Would the eggs make it?
Oh, I imagine. You see, he was a railroad man at one time, but I never remember him. He must have been retired or else didn't work anymore, because I never remember him except doing things like this, you know.
He lived to be pretty old, didn't he?
Uncle Jim was supposedly over 100, but the records were kept so poorly in those days that they were never really sure. Within a year or two of what he, you know.
He was the obvious firstborn then.
Oh yeah, Jim was the oldest. Well, George lived to be in his 90s.
Which one lived next to Grandma Swaber then in Prior Lake when they...
That was Harry.
That was Harry.
Yeah. Harry didn't, I don't know, he ended up, his health wasn't too good. He was walking with a cane for quite a while before he died, you know. I don't know.
And so that was Grandma Caecilius' house, that Harry and Grandma Caecilius lived together, right?
No, that was the Farrell's house.
Uncle Charlie lived with
Uncle Charlie was the only
Cecilius on Prairie Lake.
Yeah, she was the only one. He was the only boy that was still living in the Caecilius family.
And he never married, right?
Oh yeah, he married, but he married when he was 50, 55 or more. They were pretty good. He was in his service, in fact he was at Anzio, I don't know if you ever heard of Anzio in Italy, but it was a real bitch. And he never worked after that. His back was always too bad. He worked as a bartender and stuff like that, but you know, he never worked at a regular.
So that would have been World War I then.
Yeah,
That he was in.
He always had a tremendous garden out at Prior Lake. God, he had a beautiful garden. But that's about it. He didn't. He must have got He must have had a good disability from the government. Is sort of all I can. I don't know how he got his money. But Clara was. Well, she was about as old as he was. I guess she came from a fairly large family out there, and I think most of them were gone by that time. But she lived quite a while after he died, but she was out of it. You know, she had either had Alzheimer's or something. She didn't know who you were, or where she was, or whatever. You know. Sad.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite stories of any of your uncles? Or aunts, either or? Do you have anything about that you just remember that you have fond memories of?
Oh, God, as I say, I liked all those guys real good. I don't know, I guess one that sticks out in my mind always is a sad one about poor Jack. He was like babysitting somebody's house while they were gone, a farmhouse I believe it was. And it was winter time and it was cold, and he woke up and it was cold, so he went down to the basement and lit a match by the fire and blew his hands off. It was so bad. And he crawled up.
That killed him?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Were you a young man when that happened?
No, I was sure that I'm out of the service by that time.
Oh,
Oh boy.
what a tragedy.
Yeah, I was.
It sounds like kids were able to interact with the adults pretty well?
Oh, yes, everybody got along.
Uh-huh. I know some families had stricter rules about the children not talking, or, you know, the grown-ups in one place and the children go away.
No, I
That
don't-
sounds like you,
No.
kind of a nice
You know,
free-for-all.
you know, when you talk about that, we always got got along good. And remember I showed you that picture of Aunt Dina and her husband Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that family did nothing but fight from that day till this. They still fight with each other all the time. Somebody's always mad at somebody. Just, to me, it's so stupid, you know. God, if you can't get along with those people, how can you get along with anybody, you know?
So when you started having kids, did Grandpa wrestle with them too?
Oh, absolutely.
So he wrestled with all his grandchildren?
Oh, he loved to torture kids. We lived on 7th Street, which was the first house that we had over here. And they had the upstairs of a duplex, and the little kid lived downstairs. I don't know what the hell was the name. Was the name Larry? I can't, something like that. Anyway, the old man used to have him jumping how far he could jump, and oh God, he just had a ball, you know, with that poor little kid, torturing him all the time.
Well, let's see here. Do you remember, where'd it go? How did you meet, Donna?
Met her over at a friend's house, Lee Hansen and his wife. And Lee's wife had gone to school with my wife. That's where they both went to South High School. That's where I met her.
And was this after you got out of the service?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was a free man for a year before I got married.
Do you remember, what you guys would do, like, if you went out on the town or anything? Did you guys, or do you even remember your very first date?
No, I don't. I know we went to a lot of movies and stuff like that, and she came to all our ball games. I say I was playing three nights a week playing ball, and she used to go fishing with me too. She'd even get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, and go out to the lake and throw the plug around a little bit.
She's no wonder you fell in love with her.
Yeah, remember once her father-in-law, stepfather, the guy had more goddamn car accidents than anybody ever knew. I remember once hit a Greyhound bus with Grandma in the car, and the only thing that saved it was that her door came open. They both flew out into the ditch and stuff. But Donna was coming back from Mille Lacs with him, and she'd gone up fishing it. And he's coming along, and he's going. He always drove a Chevy, and it had to be going 75, 80 miles an hour, or he started to bitch at you about it. Anyway, as he was coming down this hill, the panel truck in front of him was going to turn to the right, and he slowed way down. And Al, of course, slams the brakes on at 80 miles an hour, and the Chiv, instead of stopping, it starts skipping. Skipped across the highway and hit a Buick head on. The goddamn Buick had a 5 horsepower Johnson tied on the front bumper, and it ended up in the dashboard.
Oh,
And poor Grandma, she had lumps on her head that they were cutting open for months, broke her arm. And Donna, of course, was in the back seat, so she just got all bruised up, smashing into the front. But this guy here, he finally took his driver's license away from him before he killed somebody. And you know what he did then? He got my poor Barbara and made her go with him to learn how to drive and get his license back. She was a nervous wreck for so long, and then finally they finally gave him his license back. He tortured, kept picking at him out there, so they take the license and get the hell out of here. And it never stopped to the day he died, and he lived to be, I think he lived to be 100. He was, in fact, he was in the German army in the First World War. But every time he'd have an accident, he'd know it was his fault, but then in about 2 weeks he'd have it all turned around, figured out it was the other person's fault. God, he was something else.
And what was his relationship again?
He was Donna's mother's second husband.
Oh, okay.
What happened to the first husband?
I don't know, this sucker just took off and left, abandoned them. 3 little girls.
Do you remember when you were dating, or before you were dating, did Grandma and Grandpa ever talk to you about the birds and the bees?
No.
They ever
I
explain
had a pretty
everything?
good idea where the bears and bees were by that time.
What are your children's names, oldest to youngest?
Trudy, Michael, Barbara, Patricia, Shannon, Jamie and Kelly, Cassie and Jan.
Do you remember what you thought or felt the first time you held the first baby?
I don't know, I never really liked them and to handle them too much when they were real little. I liked them when they got a little fatter. They didn't hurt anybody.
So did you ever tease your kids?
Oh, no.
No?
Oh, no, I never.
You didn't wrestle with your kids like Grandpa did then?
No, I used to wrestle with Uncle Gus I remember when I was over in St. Paul and I was in high school, but I worked in this laundry in the summertime. It was a relative of my father's, on my father's side, Kate Gibbons. God, what a horrible job. I used to start getting sick about 2 blocks away from it in the morning. Stand there, hotter than a pistol, you know, in the summertime, just during summertime, not any other time. But there's no air conditioning, all few fans. Those old ladies would be fainting all over the place from the heat. And God, what an ugly job that was. 5.5 days a week, and I'd take home $13.
Oh. How old were you?
I was about 16, I suppose.
How old were you when you entered the Marines?
When I what?
How old were you when you entered the Marines?
I was 21.
Were you drafted or did you just...
No,
You enlisted?
I was, Lee Hansen and I took off from St. Paul and went down to Chicago and worked down to Chicago. Because you could get a job real easy there. You weren't making big money. We had a decent apartment, had a car and everything, so everything was going fine. But when I turned 21, I had to register for the draft in Chicago. And that's about the time I cut my finger. And so I came home. And then we decided we'd go to Detroit, get jobs there. So we got as far as Jackson, Michigan, and we were broke. I had a car, but we didn't have any money. So it was Lee Hansen and Orr McCann and I went down. I was working in a little hamburger joint called the Dippy Duck in Jackson, Michigan. And about that time, I got a letter from the draft board in Chicago. It said, report to the draft board. So I said, well, goddamn, filled Chicago's quota for him because I hated Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down to the Marine recruiter there in Jackson, Michigan. They sent us into Detroit from Jackson. We were sworn in Detroit.
So you just signed up?
Yeah, well, they send a telegram to your folks for you.
Oh, gee.
Do you remember where did you go for basic training and kind of what you did there?
Parris Island.
Parris Island.
Island, South Carolina.
Oh, really?
There was two big Marine. One was in California, Camp Pendleton, or San Diego in California. Anybody west of the Mississippi went to California. Anybody east of the Mississippi went to Parris Island. And I went, say, from Detroit to Parris Island.
What time of year was that?
September.
Oh, for basic.
September 24th, I think, I might discharge it. And I thought, you know, here it's a pretty neat time of the year, you know. God damn, in Carolina it was hotter than a pistol. Damn sand fleas would get in your nose and your mouth and your ears, and you couldn't move, you know, damn stand at attention, that sucker, if you didn't, he'd come and whack you with his goddamn swagger stick, you know. Oh geez, they were mean in the Marine Corps. Oh God.
What kind of stuff did you do while you were in basic training?
Well, what you first start out with, more or less close order drill and stuff, then you go into bayonet, you know, run the bayonet course. And then after you're in boot camp for a couple of weeks, you go on the rifle range. And the rifle range was the worst of all, because you have to assume the different stances that you're supposed to fire your rifle from. And one of them is where you got to sit on this leg's got to be underneath, and you sit on it. Okay, for the first couple of days, the thing will go to sleep after you sit on it for a while. It doesn't bother you. After that, it won't go to sleep. Then it just pain just shoots up and down that sucker, drive you crazy, you know. And then you're sitting there like that, and the sucker comes and sits on your shoulders, you know.
Jeez.
I seen a lot of grown men sitting there crying like babies. They couldn't stand it, but that's the way they did it. And you spend a couple of weeks on the rifle range, fire at 100, 200, 300, and 500 yards. 500 yards you fire, you're prone. It's like 100 yards you're offhand, you just stand there and shoot offhand. And then it's sitting and kneeling from 300 and 400.
How good of a shot were you? Do you remember?
I just missed being a sharpshooter. I didn't quite make it. I couldn't hold quite good enough on offhand. At 500 yards I could hold real good, stay in a bowl good, but I couldn't.
And what kind of rifle was that again?
That was the old Springfield, 1903 Springfield, World War I rifles. In fact, we went overseas with World War I rifles.
Really?
To Guadalcanal, yeah. We didn't get new stuff until after we came off the canal. We went to Australia. Went to Brisbane first, which is in northern Australia, and that was tropics. And everybody had malaria, so we were all sick, you know. So then they shipped us down to Melbourne, which was temperate, and much better for it.
So do you remember the first place you went to after basic training then? Where do you go from?
Quantico, Virginia. And then, in fact, I was in Quantico, Virginia when the war started. And then they shipped us down to New River, or Tent City, North Carolina, and started to form the 1st Division that winter, 41, 42. Went overseas from Norfolk, Virginia, and I think it was April or May or something like that, 42.
Do you remember the very first place that you landed then? The first battle that you guys...
Well, we went from Norfolk, we went to New Zealand. From New Zealand we went up to Fiji's and held maneuvers, and then we went to Guadalcanal.
What were the boats like that you were in?
The what?
What kind of boat, what kind of ships were you in?
Oh, well, most of them were, we went overseas on a ship called USS Electra, which was about a 10,000 ton ship, but it had a 5-inch gun on the fantail and 3-inch guns forward and aft, and the 20 millimeters were on the
Sides.
top. And these were good ships. I mean, actually we went over, we stood watch on the 3-inch guns all the way over, like 4 on and 8 off and 4 on. And we got right in the lines with the swab jockeys, and for to eat and stuff, we didn't have to let them go first and all that. It was really good, you know. But some of the others after we were overseas were the old Liberty ships, and boy, they were cruddy. We'd have to, when we'd go out on our little tank lighters, we'd go out and they'd throw these old cargo nets over the side, old rope nets, and you'd pull yourself up one hand and it sagged down about that far, and you know, you did that, go crawl up that sucker all the way, probably 20 feet up the side of that damn ship till you flopped over into the deck, you know. Which wasn't so bad, but when we came off Peleliu, we'd only been on Peleliu for 30 days or something, but we lost a good 50% of our people. It was a real battle. And we got out there, and we were crawling up these things, and these clowns go above you are starting to drop their souvenirs, tennis rackets, and goddamn, pretty soon somebody drops their right weapon and that comes falling down. And then the guy right above us said, I can't make it, I can't make it. So the guy next to me and I, we each got a shoulder on his butt and worked him up over the side. But you imagine that you're so worn out from 30 days of crawling over this damn island was really little. It was only about 5 miles long and a mile or 3/4 of a mile wide. And they had 12,000 Japs on it, and it was a big coral ridge that ran right down the middle of it, and they had it hollowed out. You blast those caves shut, Christ, as soon as you pull your head back, they'd be shooting out of them again. So, you know, we were really worn out. I wore out 2 pair of shoes on a coral, sharp, you know, so sharp in 30 days. And you're out there, and we're on the ship, on the landing boat going out there. By the time we got out there, we noticed our feet were getting wet. Here, our goddamn landing bar just sinking. You know? They had to drop a hook over the side of the boat and hook a hook onto it with a boom to keep it from going down. Oh, we had some good times. And that wasn't so bad. We just got on the ship and got the hell out of there. But some of our guys got on a ship and they took them out into somewhere out in the ocean and transferred them from one ship to the other. And the sea was running pretty rough, and they'd get them on, and they'd have to jump and grab the Jacob's ladder to get back up. Oh God, they were really bad.
So there's a jump from one ship into the water and then
Not into the water from one ship to the Jacob's ladder. This is just a ladder, collapsible ladder that hangs over the side. See, you know, it's like a rope ladder, but it isn't rope. It's a real ladder itself. It's got rungs on it. Normally, when you get off or get on, you have to go with a cargo net, you know. But this is a ladder. But they try to jump from the boat to get the hold of the ladder and get up on top. They're, you know, going like this. As the waves came, they were really shook up.
Do you remember what kind of equipment and stuff you had to carry? Other than a rifle, did you have anything else other than
Oh
that?
yeah, our packs weighed 60 pounds, you know, we had a lot of stuff in that there. Ammunition, mess kit, gear, extra clothes, shoes, crap like that. Rifle weighed 10 pounds and the pack weighed 60.
And you'd have to lug that around all day, basically.
Oh, hey, a 26-mile hike.
Really?
And then we'd try to save enough energy so we could double time the last mile so we could tramp the officers into the deck. Yeah.
Do you remember what your did you have specific duties?
No, just a plain ground pounding bug, that's all. No, that's all, just carry your rifle and run.
Do you remember after the war what it was like coming home? How'd you feel coming home?
Oh God, you can't believe how long time can seem, you know, when you want to get back so bad.
How long were you gone?
Well, we left in May of 42 and came back in 45. 2.5, not quite 3 years, about 2 years and 7 or 8 months.
Do you remember who the first family member was that you saw when you got home?
Well, I got home and I tried to get a taxi downtown. Came home on the train, you know, and you know, you had to take everybody that was there. So there were about 3 other people. And I had to wait till they dropped them all off. When I got home, they were all out in the yard.
They were waiting for you, they knew you were coming?
Yeah, I called them. We got a troop train from San Diego, and I got off in Kansas City. Then from Kansas City, I was on my own. I got the rocket it was a good streamliner from Kansas City to Minneapolis. Then they gave us 30-day, what they call 30-day delay en route. See, in 30 days, we had to report to Lejeune. So what we did in those 30 days, and of course I got malaria, I was out of old Chamberlain for 10 days, they kept me for 10 days, but they gave me a 10-day extension when I wired the Marine Corps headquarters. They gave me a 10-day extension. So when I got to Lejeune, I see these guys and they say, they thought, no, you gone over the hump, you thought it had gone over the hill.
Oh.
Do you know what your first job was coming out of the service? Do you remember?
Yeah, I got the job as a window trimmer, display work, you know, like
Oh.
old golds, anything that, remember the old drugstores always used to have display windows? And then with this guy, you know, this Hanson that I had been in the CC camp with him, and I also hitchhiked down to Chicago with him. And he actually had such a bad heart that they wouldn't take him in the service, so he stayed with my parents sometime while I was gone. So he was still around when I got out, and he was working for Canada Dry, and he said, this guy, window company, was looking for somebody, so I went down there. I was going to, at that time you could get, I think it was $25 a week for 52 weeks if you didn't want to work, you know. 52, so 25 something. So I was going to take a nice long vacation, but I heard about this job, so I went for it right away.
How much did you make on that job a week then?
But I suppose $100 is probably average.
$100 a week?
Yeah.
That's quite a big jump in pay then, yeah.
That was good then, yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't bad at all. Sure.
Probably seemed like an easy job compared to the Marine Corps.
Well, I know we did a lot of sitting around and laying around too. You know.
Where did you live then at that time when you first came back and you were working there?
Well, mother and dad still had a upper duplex over on 7th Street.
Okay.
I was at home.
Do you remember what, did that house have a phone?
Oh, yeah,
It did?
yeah.
What was the first house you lived in that had a phone, do you remember?
That probably was it.
Well, did it seem pretty bizarre to be able to use a phone and talk to another person on the phone and stuff when you first came across
I don't know,
that technology?
I guess I didn't think too much about it. We didn't have a radio till I was 15. I remember the first radio we had was over in St. Paul.
Do you remember the first TV then?
The first one I had bought a Emerson, I think. The kids were, I think the kids were probably, maybe the last couple of little girls weren't born yet or something. So we had a house on Wentworth here in Minneapolis, 4204 Wentworth. I remember Mike, my oldest son, came to the supper table with tears in his eyes, and he wanted to know how come we always had to have supper when Crusader Wabbit was on.
Do you what did you like most about Uncle Pat, Dad, Doug, and Jenny? About each person? Do you remember anything about their personalities that you liked the most about your siblings?
I don't know, they were all so easy to get along with. I had no problem with them for anything at all, you know. We always got along great.
Do you remember anything specifically about Uncle Pat that you really admired him about, or?
Oh, he was a good worker, that guy. I don't know, he was probably more like the Farrell, like Bob was a little more like calmer, you know, like Mother. Remember he took a Dale Carnegie horse down, didn't he?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dad did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I read
Very,
the book.
I've never, you know, I only ever saw him really mad once. Somebody tried to cheat him out of his wages.
How about Uncle Doug?
Well, I don't know, he was so much younger, you know, he was, see, he was the only one, actually, I came home to see him just before Bob had already been in the service, and Doug was the last one, he was gonna go. So I don't know, they wouldn't give me, I was in Quantico again after Lejeune. We came back to, we went to Lejeune, and I got another transfer up to Quantico before, that's where I was discharged from Quantico. And I don't know, I was, had some kind of a job at night doing something there. And they didn't want to give me leave. I told them, you know, youngest brother was going to go to overseas. So I knew somebody in the office. I got 2 72-hour passes and made them out consecutively and came home.
Nice.
And that's that. Really, the only time I saw him when he was big, you know. The other times he was just a little boy.
How about Aunt Jenny? Do you remember anything?
Oh, she was special to us, of course, because they had 4 boys, and then they had this little girl at the end. Remember, the old man took her every place with him, and finally she started to get a little bigger and started to tell some stories on him in some of these places, and that was it. He didn't go anymore. Remember when I think she was May. It was still pretty chilly. I remember that morning we lived in that old farmhouse at Red Oaks, and they put her in the oven to keep her warm.
Oh my gosh.
Really? Wow.
But then, you know, in those days, I think the kids were all born at home except me. I think I was probably born in a hospital. But that was in St. Paul, of course. So.
Do you know, were you named after anybody? Your father?
Yeah, my father was William Michael.
And how about Pat? Was he named after anybody? Do you remember?
Well, it was Grandpa Farrell was Pat.
Your grandpa? Your grandpa?
My grandpa, yeah.
Okay. And how about our dad, Gus? Robert?
I don't know where she ever came up with Robert and Douglas, or Jenny either. I don't know where she, or whether that was. I imagine Mother did most of the naming. I don't imagine Dad was too interested.
Well, do you remember where you were on any historical events like? This would be more later, like when JFK was shot. Do you remember?
Yeah, I was working for R.A. Reiners over on First Street North, and it was on my lunch hour, and I had a little portable radio, and I was downstairs. I used to lay on the table downstairs and take a little nap, and I was listening to the radio, and they came across it.
How about what did you think when the first time a man set foot on the moon?
Well, that was, you know, it's such a big event, hard to believe. You know, if you go back to horse and buggy days and all of a sudden they're landing on the moon, that's one hell of a leap. I remember my grandpa Casilius used to brag he had the fastest horse and buggy in this county. And of course Grandpa Casilius was something like the old man. He used to take a little nip now and then when he was kind of funny. Real nice man.
Do you know, how do you feel about current events like 9/11 in Iraq? How do you feel that we're handling stuff like that?
Well, 9/11, that's, you know, it's hard to understand how people can be so cruddy. I don't understand how they can do things like that.
How do you feel about America considering going to war in Iraq? Being a
Well, I
veteran?
hate to hear that. You know, I was lucky as hell. It would have really killed me if one of my boys had to go. But Mike was during the Vietnam War, so I was lucky the other 2 didn't have to go, you know.
Did Mike go to Vietnam?
No, he got sent to Germany.
Oh, that was lucky.
Thank God.
Where did you work most of your adult life after you had
At
family?
Reiners. I was there for 30-some years.
Oh, okay, what'd you do there?
I was a warehouse man.
30-some years, that's a long time.
Yeah, that's right. It was a hell of a, it's not a big impressive deal, but boy, I had a beautiful, because a lot of the time I was alone, I did have people work with me sometimes, but, I did all the ordering and all the order filling and everything. Nobody bothered me.
So you liked it?
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Uh-huh.
I was happy there.
If, here's a Barbara Walters question for you. If you had your life to live all over again, would you do anything differently?
Oh, I suppose we all would, but I can't think of anything that made it any better.
Can you think of any stories that you think might be important to tell, or any that you want to tell that we didn't ask about, or historical events, or anything like that? You were saying earlier that someone's tried to screw the old man out of his paycheck. What was the story behind that?
Well, he was doing different things. At one time, he was working as a plumber apprentice. Did you know that? Do you remember that?
No, I don't know that.
Well, he did that for quite a while. And he was doing different things. I don't know what the hell this was exactly, but I remember the guy. Bob figured he'd go to him some money, and the guy wasn't going to pay him. I heard him on the phone. Man, he was really hot, and he just didn't spend a lot of time being hot about things. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty even keel. But boy, he was mad that time. Oof.
How old do you think he was then?
Well, let's see. That was. I think it was right after I got out of the service, or after all of us were all home by that time, So it was probably in the 50s somewhere in through there.
Do you remember him telling any stories about when he was in the service at all?
No, I don't. I really don't.
About
He worked as a window trimmer too.
Oh, he did.
Oh yeah. See, when they needed a out of town guy. And I told him about it, and he went down there and worked there. He took the out-of-town route.
Do you know, how did he end up getting to college? Do you remember any of that? Didn't he win a scholarship or something?
Well, I'm sure he got GI Bill.
Oh, maybe that was it.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately,
I don't know why he went to Mankato though. I don't, whether he thought there was something there that he wanted, or because Doug went to the U on GI.
Oh.
That's interesting. Do you remember the first time you met our mom?
Your mother?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure about that. I remember once when they lived over here on Lake Lowry or something, like somewhere northeast Minneapolis somewhere. That's when they were moving. I remember that. That may have been it.
So you weren't at their wedding?
Huh?
Was that before? Who was moving?
They were.
Oh, they were.
I think so. I don't know whether they're moving in or moving out now.
Do you remember their wedding at all? Or were you in the service when they got married? No, they couldn't have been.
No, I'm sure we were out then. No, there's only one thing I remember about a wedding that really got me was we were at Doug's wedding, and there was John Rice and Uncle Charlie, and all of us were all there together, And John Rice was one of those guys who would say those little things, funny things, And anyway, Doug comes in, and the guy in his shirt, it's tucks, sleeve is up to here, and the pants don't fit. And he says, "Here comes Tyrone," and so we started giggling. And Charlie didn't know why we were giggling, so he got started. The whole goddamn, pews were just shaking with all these idiots causing a riot, for Christ's sake. disgraceful. I thought that was funny as hell.
Do you remember Grandma or Grandpa's reactions at all to the first grandkids? How they felt about that?
Oh, I imagine they really welcomed him, yeah. They were both families, so, you know, solid family people. Matter of fact, that was, Pat and Gloria were living on 7th Street with them at the time, right after the war. I don't know where Pat went from there. I can't recall that.
Was he the first one to get married?
Yeah,
Yeah, Pat and Gloria.
yeah.
Who came next?
Must have been me, as, I don't know. It was about a year after I got out, 45, 46. 40, I suppose I was married in 46.
Sure.
So now you've been married over 50 years.
Oh, yeah.
50.
I don't know, 52 or 3, I think she said sometime. I don't pay much attention to that guy.
So what's your favorite pastime nowadays?
Well, it's about the best thing I do now is play golf every day. At least it gets me some exercise. I worked until, May,
Oh.
part-time. I worked at that church, cleaning that church for 19 years or something.
Oh.
And I'm really kind of sorry I'm not still there, but the only thing was it was out on Xerxes. And I had a 98 Saturn that had 73,000 miles on it, and most of it was pounding back and forth there, you know. I thought, this is ridiculous, so I quit. I wish I hadn't. And I hate to start something again, too, now.
Do you golf in the winter?
No. I go over here and walk around Columbia Golf Course once to get too cold.
Uh-huh.
But we used to go down to Arizona every winter for at least a couple of weeks. But everybody I knew down there is dead now, so.
Can you think of anything else, Brittany?
I don't think so.
That's all I
I think we covered a lot of territory.
have. Yeah, I know there's a
You
lot
know,
of
we covered a
holes in
lot of territory for Dennis Farrell, too. We filled out all this stuff for him. But, I haven't heard a thing from him.
Oh, right.
He came to the Christmas dinner last year, and that was the last I've heard.
I thought he was going to have something at the reunion this year. He was going
Yeah.
to give some presentation or something.
Yeah, I thought I don't know. Doug has never heard anything from him either, so.
Well, if it's all right with you, we'd like to be able to have you think about if this jogs your memory at all. So if we can come back for a little while tomorrow and
Sure,
see if there's stories, because I know there's got to be some stories you remember about your dad or your mom or your aunts and uncles or brothers and sisters that, it was so long ago. I can hardly remember my childhood, and that was only 30 years ago.
Yeah, right.
So, but maybe if you think about it overnight or something, now that we've kind of made you relive your whole life, that you might be able to remember some things.
I tell you what we should do is maybe sometime, if you have a day, you'd run out and see Butch, because Butch has got so much more Farrell.
Do you think Butch would mind us putting a camera on him?
Oh,
and
I'm
talking?
sure he wouldn't. He's I have another cousin on the other side, like Gene Simpkins, who does the same thing. I mean, these guys have really been into it. Gene has been into it for years. He has, I think someplace I've got a tape of Friar Lake and stuff that he made up and he cut.
You were saying Butch remembers the families really well.
Oh yeah, you see, he's been out there, right, working with them for all these years. Once we got into the city, why we kind of got off on our own
Right.
track. But he knows a lot more about the rest, the uncles and aunts and grandpas and grandmas and stuff like that.
Maybe we could run down there. on a
That'd be
weekend.
great, yeah.
Bring you down,
Sure.
visit.
Not only that, you could go out and, see, like my grandpa's stuff, graves at Credit River.
It's, okay. Do you know, are any of the
Mother-
old?
Mother and Dad are buried at Prior Lake in St. Michael's.
Yeah.
In fact, was a couple of years ago when we were getting the stone, well, Gus and I went out and got it that time, you know.
Mhm.
And we went out there and somebody said, well, Uncle Jack is buried right here. There was no stone there, there's nothing, not even a footstone. So Doug and Jenny and I and Butch and Jim Thornton got together and we put up a stone for
Uncle Jack.
Yeah.
And Jack is the one that got his hands blown off, is that right?
He what?
He's the one that lit the stove.
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah.
got his hands blown off.
God, I tell you, he's the only one that was single, you know, he never married.
Mhm.
He was a real little guy,
Mhm.
and he drank a lot
Mhm.
and stuff like that, but
Right.
goddamn, he was a nice man.
Wonder why he never got a stone.
Hmm?
Wonder why he never got a stone until that.
I couldn't understand why some of the brothers, you know, we had 3 or 4 brothers that outlived him by quite a bit. Nobody ever did anything at all. You know, it's kind of stupid. I thought.
Mhm. And do you know where are all your uncles buried out there where Dad's buried then too, or no?
I think so. I think so.
And let's say if we went to St. Paul, do you think if we drove down those streets, you'd be able to if the houses were still there, would
Oh, I
you
know. I'm
recognize?
sure. I remember. But
Maybe we could do that on a weekday or something when you're not walking around the, you know.
see, the only thing on the weekdays is she works. Well, I bring her to work at 10:30 in the morning. I haven't been picking her up at night. Cassie's works for Lutheran Brother downtown, and she picks her up and brings her home at night, or she has been. But any time other than that, I'd be available, you know.
So anytime after 11 or noon or something.
Yeah, right.
Okay. It'd be interesting to see if we could find those old houses, just
Oh,
to
yeah.
get a couple pictures of them, or
Yeah.
who knows, maybe I'll buy them.
They're old enough, believe me. 10 minutes a lot of times.
Wow, that's good.
That's terrific.
This is a great location as far as ease of access to all
Yeah,
sorts
the
of.
only thing now is that stupid Wells Fargo is moving out to Shoreview, which
Oh,
means you gotta go out to 694 and then you
Mhm.
gotta go on 35 north.
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
imagine what a rat race that is at night?
Yeah, that is for
It
sure.
isn't bad in the daytime because she doesn't go to work till 10:30.
Oh, uh-huh.
So, but I don't know if she,
What time does she get off at night then?
well, anytime after 4:30.
Oh,
You never know, it depends on how busy they are, because
Oh.
usually sometimes they're a little later and sometimes they get done a little quicker.
what does she do there?
I don't know, she works for in their headquarters downtown, I don't know whatever. Something to do with checking and from stuff from other banks that come in and stuff.
Oh,
like that.
okay.
I don't know.
Oh, you remember this camera.
What do you need, maybe I can find it.
No, I'm just gonna put it on a little bit, need a little bit more, space. This might be
Do you have a camera?
Huh?
Do you have a camera?
I don't think we even have one, or we must have some, but I don't know, we never use them. I don't know. We used to use Polaroid all the time, there was a lot of
Uh-huh.
them, we had those, I know.
When the kids were little?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I know she was, she got a whole bunch of albums in there, she was making for each kid,
Oh,
their, you know, their immediate
Mhm.
family and stuff, I don't know what arrangement she's ever got to, but they're all stuffed under the desk in there.
I've got mine in boxes.
That's the best place, that's where mine are.
I always just thought it was sort of an adventure to go in there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
yeah. I can't imagine the organization it takes for 10 kids to sort out all the
Oh,
pictures.
yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah. No kidding. Welcome to your headache.
We went to an accordion festival last night
Oh,
down on East Hennepin, just off University.
oh,
Kramarchik's Meat
Oh.
Market, and I guess it's a deli. They do that every Saturday night. They have accordion music.
oh, is that right?
They had some really nice groups last night.
Yeah. Well, that's been a famous spot over there for many years. you know.
Uh-huh, yeah.
See, at one time I worked when I first worked for the window trimming company, we were at down to where the old Gateway in that area. I think the name of the building was the Gateway, but it's gone now,
wow.
of course, you know. So then we moved across the river. We were on East Hennepin,
Oh, uh-huh.
so I was around that area
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Nice area.
Yeah.
Of course, it's changed a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Gateway. Why is that ringing a bell?
Because of computers.
Well, that was
No.
it was right on Hennepin and Washington, the old Gateway building.
Oh, okay.
I remember once they had a fire up one of the upper floors, and the whole damn thing was just a sheet of ice. So, you know, what the fire didn't get, the firemen fixed up. So
Shoot.
they finished it off pretty well.
Oh, man.
But of course, that's all changed now. I know. Well, the old, what was it, the St. Paul Hotel? Was that the one that was right there on Washington and Hennepin? That big hotel. Remember, it used to be there. Then later on, it was
The,
Federal Reserve Building. Now it's something else again.
yeah,
Federal Reserve built because Patricia works for Federal Reserve.
oh, uh-huh.
They moved right on the river
Right,
itself.
yeah, nice,
New building there.
yeah. Yeah, it sure changed our downtown a lot.
You remember the old Metropolitan Building? How they complained when they tore that down?
My dad was so upset. Oh,
Oh, is that right?
oh, boy, yeah, he was really upset
I
about
don't know.
that.
I didn't
It
know.
was such a beautiful building.
Oh, yeah, it was. Of course, the old elevators they had in there and stuff were kind of like open elevators, you know. They weren't rattle and bang, and
Ooh,
they were pretty ancient, but I didn't know he was interested in that at all.
yeah,
Yeah, there was a lot of unhappy conversation about tearing that building
Mhm.
down because,
oh, yeah.
well, of course, the whole Gateway area down there was more or less you know, they just demolished the
Yeah.
whole area.
Yeah, they did. That's too bad.
Yeah.
There was some beautiful architecture.
Yeah, I
Lost.
suppose. They had a lot of movie theaters and restaurants and stuff down there.
Mhm. The master of one.
Hard part is holding still.
Uh-huh.
I've always been a little shaky.
Yeah, it's a hard thing for our family to sit still. Although it got easier after I turned 40.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of hyper though.
Wait till you reach 80, it gets kind of hard to move then. You don't have to worry about being still anymore.
Oh, I keep sitting on this doll's foot, you poor little girl.
Oh, yeah, Donna likes that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh, I see that.
Do you ever take a look at that thing? You know what that is? That's cross stitch.
Oh,
I looked at the, yes,
Isn't
did
that
Donna
something?
do that?
Huh?
Did
Yeah,
Donna? Oh,
yeah.
boy.
She did all those on the walls.
Oh,
oh
really?
my goodness.
But I think this is
Oh, this
one
is
of,
beautiful.
oh, isn't that something?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe that is cross stitch, you know.
Uh-huh.
It looks like water, you know. How can you do it so it looks so?
Wow. Boy, that takes patience.
See the mallards up kind of, right, yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't that unbelievable?
yeah. It really is. I was looking at it yesterday, I kept staring at it. And I like the outdoors so much, it's
Oh, yeah.
so pretty.
Well, Don should
Yeah.
like that one in there, the pheasant that Mike gave me for Christmas or something.
Oh,
That-
that's nice.
That one up there? Yeah,
Yeah.
I do like that one.
You want me to hold something, kid?
Can you just put your fingers right
Sure. Where's my body supposed to go?
here? Away from
You want
Right
like
where we
maybe
are
a,
right now.
maybe a butter knife or
it. I got a
something?
flash, so.
Hold it for you.
See a fingerprint right
Oh, yeah, that's okay, as long as it's not on the lens.
there. Right. Want me again?
Sure. Yeah, they used real bunny fur on this thing, and it looked like a real kitten there.
Yeah, it does. Saving Private Ryan was on last night.
Yeah, I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, wanted to watch it too, and I did the same thing. I turned it off. I said, that's a little bit too bloody for me. I don't need
Yeah,
that.
it's very graphic.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're there.
Actually, you know what I did is I read Beaner's interview with you.
Oh, yeah.
Instead, I just said, well,
Yeah.
you know, it's a part of history, but I don't wanna see it so graphic.
No, I didn't like it too.
I know it's accurate probably, but.
Well, they had another one about the same time. It was The Thin Red Line.
Oh,
It was about Guadalcanal. I read the book, but I didn't
Oh,
watch
wow.
the movie.
yeah.
I'll see if I can get real close.
Peter worked with a German fellow who was born in 1950 in Germany.
Oh?
And he said, he came over here like, you know, in the 90s or something. He said that he had never heard of Hitler till he came to this country. He said they didn't teach anything about him in
Oh, is
the
that
history
right?
books, they didn't talk about him.
They just ignored it, huh?
Yeah,
I think the Japanese kind of did some of the same stuff, especially about what they did in China and stuff, you know. They weren't
Oh.
too proud of that.
Yeah.
So they just
Death walks.
sort of glossed over it, you know. It didn't go into the
sure.
history books too big.
Well, you know, the United States really did the same thing with us.
Oh, I'm sure
Native
they did,
Americans, in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They never really told us, even like Minnesota history, where the.
Never made, like what happened to the Indians and stuff, you know. They never made a
Right.
big deal about that. Yeah.
Nice. I suppose not everybody wants to remember, you know, stuff that.
Well,
They
you
feel
know, it's
guilty about
human
it.
nature to black out the bad stuff and
Mhm.
sort of remember the not so bad stuff. I
Right.
guess. If you didn't black out the bad times and the bad things, why, you know, you'd go crazy thinking
Yeah.
about them.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of things to really upset you if you want to think about it, but you know, there's so much good in it that
I agree.
Yep.
that's what makes me feel bad about, you know, what they're doing in Iraq, because boy, you know, there's gonna be a lot of young guys get killed in that crap. I mean, God, what a waste, and war is such a such a horrible waste, it's unbelievable, you know, you can't even begin to comprehend how bad it is, it's just.
You know, it's, in a way though, it's almost not surprising that we can't even get along as neighbors.
I
You
guess
know?
that's true.
I mean, I was kinda having a discussion with Mom one time, she was talking about why can't people get along, and I said, Ma, you're arguing with your own neighbors. They're building fences and,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. On the other hand though, the gal next door has got cancer and Ma's over there taking her to the hospital
Oh, is
and
that right? Yeah.
feeding her cats, and you know
Yeah.
Ma can't stand cats, but
Oh, is that
she's
right?
feeding her cats.
She hates
Yeah.
animals.
And she tells her, she says to the lady was telling her, I don't remember her name, I think her name might be Barb, but I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
Just trying to show Ma where the litter box is.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Ma says, I don't do litter boxes.
I can't blame her for that.
And she walks in, you know, and the cats are on the kitchen counters and all over the house, you
Oh,
know.
God, I don't
And
like
Ma
that
is
either,
just,
no.
she just wants to throw up, but
Yeah.
she'll,
Yeah. She wants to kill the cats.
Yeah.
right,
Is what she wants
that's
to
her
do.
solution.
Yeah.
And
So-
still people are so damn good, you know, when Donna had cancer, we lived on Garfield, and my neighbors up and down the block were bringing me, all kinds of food, you know, you couldn't believe it. They had it all drilled out who was gonna bring it what day, you know.
Excellent.
Isn't that something? I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Drifted, you know, yeah. Lost his equilibrium entirely.
Oh.
But they always had cats, yeah.
Mm.
But sooner or later, why, somebody'd run over one or some damn thing, you know. My in-laws had a couple cottages up on Big Sandy Lake, and they'd go up there and stay up there in the summertime for a while. And I wouldn't feed the cats, so they'd run away by that time, you know. Got the message and left. I don't know, when we were kids, we always had dogs, but you know, that was different. We were out in the country
Yeah.
where they could run, you know.
Yeah.
Miserable for a poor dog, you know, it gotta be cooped up, all tied up all the time and all that crap. Now they got down here by Columbia Park, by the golf course, across from the golf course, they got a big place where they can run their dogs.
Oh, uh-huh, a dog
On
park.
leash, yeah.
Off leash area?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and it's all fenced in.
Yeah, right. Can't bother anybody, so they let them have a little exercise and do what they like to do instead of just being tied to rope
Right.
someplace, you
Yeah.
know.
Me and my dogs go out, well, I take Jill's dog out too, but we go out every morning, maybe half an hour,
Yeah.
45 minutes down at Bunker Hills Park.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Can they
Just
run
in.
loose there?
Oh yeah, and there's
Oh,
pheasants
no.
and
Oh, wow.
there's horses and stuff, they like to get chased by horses, so.
Really?
Yeah, especially Dory, she barks at him and gets him to chase her, and she just thinks that's the funnest thing in the world.
Wow.
Billy and Dylan are not, they're a little more intimidated by the horses than
Uh-huh.
Dory is. But something happened to Dory. The last time we walked through, there's a lot of, well, there's Belgians and stuff down there and a couple others, you know, some of those draft horses down
Yeah.
there. Well, they're huge.
And
Oh,
there.
God, yeah.
And they fenced off this new area where it used to be, we used to just walk right through there. Well, now it's fenced. To get to the path, we gotta walk through
Oh, yeah.
horses sometimes. They put them in there, you know, they change them from pasture to pasture to pasture.
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't know what happened to Dory. The last time we went through there, one of the horses came trotting up to us. You know, there's always one that's just inquisitive as heck.
Yeah.
And she was afraid. She didn't want to walk through and follow, because eventually, you know, they see a person, they think you're the guy that's gonna feed them.
Yeah.
So pretty soon
Oh,
they're
sure.
all over you,
Yeah.
you know, and they're
Oh.
huge. Some of those
Oh, they're
Belgians are,
enormous.
you know, their
Right,
butts are
yes.
the high as your
Oh,
head.
yeah, they're
And then they're like the
monsters,
size
right?
of a Volkswagen, and
Yeah.
but Dory for some reason was afraid the last time. I don't know what her.
She ever gets maybe too close, kicked a little
She
bit, or
must have
stepped on
gotten-
her
She
or
might have
some
gotten
damn
kicked.
thing.
She must have gotten a slight kick because there was
Yeah.
no. You know, if they really kicked her,
Oh,
they
God,
could
you'd
really
be flying
Yeah.
for
kill her,
Yeah.
or at least break a bone or
Yeah.
something, but nothing like that.
I just am in awe of those animals. They're just so magnificent.
Oh, they are,
They
they're
are.
terrific. Even like racehorses and stuff, they're so beautiful. Those animals are just beautiful, you know.
They are.
Seems a shame, you know, when they break a leg and stuff, and
Put 'em
they gotta
down.
put them down.
You know, they don't, if it's a more of a champion type of thoroughbred, they don't put them down
Oh,
anymore.
is that right?
Yeah,
Splint them up somehow.
there's too much money in breeding them,
Oh, I suppose, yeah.
Oh.
so they find a way, they just retire them.
Yeah,
It's okay for them to live,
yeah,
they just can't be the way they used to be.
Oh,
I guess it would
absolutely.
depend on how bad a break was or something, but
yeah.
at least
Yeah, it
that's what-
seems kinda sad that they have to do it.
yeah. I'm still glad they, harvest cows though, cause otherwise that'd be none of my major food groups would be out of the door.
Yeah. Well, I always said if it wasn't for hamburger, well, there would be no excuse for cows. Hamburger and cheddar cheese.
There you go. I always liked cows, but I didn't have to do what you did.
No,
I used to spend a couple weeks on my Aunt Esther's farm, and they had cows, and I just thought they were so nice.
yeah. Well, they don't bother you, but you know, I don't know if you've ever been on a farm, you go in the barn in the morning and a damn so much mess they made.
Mm-hmm.
Just unbelievable. So you start at one end of the barn, by the time you get down to the other end of the barn, the son of a bitch, you gotta come back at this end of the barn, because that's the way they operate. Oh, they drive you crazy. Rotten animals.
Yep.
Horses I always liked, but cows I never really had any.
Well, horses, you don't have to get your face down there for 15, 20 minutes milking them.
Yeah, right.
You know, I'm sure they'd swat you with their tail too.
Oh, yeah.
But cows horses don't really ever lay in their own crap and stuff.
No, I don't think they're not as messy as.
Well, a lot of the farmers now, they just cut the tails.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, because some cows are more apt to always try to swat you than others. They
Yeah.
just cut the tails.
I'll be damned. Well, I would think the flies would be kind of tough on them then, though.
It is, but you know, I think they try to just spray them maybe, or they do
Yeah.
something, I don't know, but
Yeah,
there
they
sure is.
probably could.
Some friends of ours have about 1,000 head of dairy cattle,
Oh,
and there's a lot of them walking around with real short tails.
yeah. I'll be damned. I never saw that. You know, when you talk about that, when I came back from the service, which is a long time ago, but my grandma Casilius was, you know, she was in her 80s, because she was in her 90s when she still had a couple of cows of her own that she milked.
Really?
Did her own, took care of them.
Wow. Would she have to milk them twice a day then too?
Yeah,
Oh boy. In her 80s?
yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
She was.
Well, let's see if we can get can you, yesterday when we were having apple pie, you had mentioned a Model T about with a buddy of yours. Can you tell us that story
Oh,
again?
yeah. Well, there's an extension to that story because he and I bought this Model T for 20 bucks, 10 bucks a piece. 1927, it was in nice shape, good running car. So we had it all fixed up, and he fixed up a throttle foot feed through the floorboards, because the old Model Ts, the throttle was here, little lever on the steering column, right up by the horn.
Was it like a shifter then, or did you slide it? Was it like a 3-speed old shift, you know how that used to be?
No, you didn't shift it at all. You just had, there was 2 bands, circular bands that went around a thing that turned, you know, I don't know what made it turn, like a drive shaft.
Mhm.
Okay, it went around the drive shaft. One of them was for forward and one of them was for reverse. So you when you put it in forward, all you did was determine how fast, by how much gas you gave it. You
Okay.
didn't shift anything.
Right.
Just put it in forward.
One gear forward,
One gear
one
forward and
reverse.
one reverse. That's
Okay.
all there was to it. Very simple. But the bands wore out, and of course sometimes the bands had to be replaced, but you know, but otherwise there was no problem there. But anyway, Orr fixed it up so that the throttle came through the floorboards and he didn't cap the shaft he put through there, was just a straight shaft. and I was going wide open, it was vibrating, and it jiggled down underneath the floorboards. So it was going wide open, and I didn't have enough brains to reach over, turn off the key. That, you know, was one of my first car, I didn't know it. So I'm down there trying to get my hand down, get a hold of that, into that thing and get it up through the floorboards, and I suppose I turned a little bit, and they were so top heavy. Once they did that, they just boom, 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 and then she flipped right over. Slid right down the highway on its top. Farmer and his kid was
On its top?
on the top of it, yeah.
Oh boy.
The only thing ever happened, I skinned my elbow. The only thing that happened.
And no seat belts or anything back then?
Oh, hell no,
Oh,
you
boy.
didn't hear about that crap then.
So you were still sitting in it, or did you get thrown out?
No, I didn't have any problem with it. I mean, it just bounced around a little bit. They came out and helped me push it back up on its wheels, and I drove it home. But funny thing that ever happened, we went down to Chicago then. Lee Hansen and I went down there and got jobs. So we wrote to McCann and Brother Pat and a couple other guys, Kurt. They all came down, all got jobs. So McCann and I bought a Model A together. And sure as hell, I'm going down the road, and a car comes out from this side, like, and I was right into, and I turned the wheel like this just as hard as I could to go with them, flipped the goddamn Model A over. That one was totaled right there. He didn't even get his $10 back there. I don't know what we had invested in that, but he says, we're not buying any more cars together. That was enough.
You're on your
Well,
own.
you had mentioned too that that Model T had wooden wheels.
No, the old Durant had wooden wheels.
Okay.
29 Durant.
And what'd you have to do with them to keep them from squeaking?
Throw a bucket of water on them every morning in the summertime. Else they dried out and they squeak, you know.
Uh-huh.
Creak, you know how
Sure,
wood creaks
yeah.
and it's loose.
How fast could you go on one of those things? 30 miles an hour? 40?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. The Durant was, Durant was a regular shift, floor shift, dual floor shift, you know.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay.
and reverse four gears. And I was, that would go along like anything else, you know, like a car do now.
Okay. So did they have like V8s and stuff in them by then?
No, this was straight 6.
Okay.
I don't think the Fords, I think it was what, a 33 or 34 Ford was the first V8. Up until then there were, after the Model A there was a Model B for 1 year, and then they went to the V8. And in those days, if you wanted a V8, you bought a Ford. If you wanted a 6, you bought a Chevy. You know, there wasn't much, there was a lot of other cars. I mean, what was it? McCann owned a big Hupmobile one time, for God's sake. And that was as big as a tank. In fact, he ran into somebody, that was the only time I ever got knocked out. He ended up laying over in somebody's yard. I remember I woke up over there when he hit this thing. So he hit that one pretty good.
What kind of car were you in?
I was in his Hupmobile.
Okay, and what kind of car did you guys hit?
I don't even remember. Anyway, it was big enough to give us a real belt.
Was there any alcohol involved in that experience?
No, I never had that problem at all.